Welcome back to the shooting channel. I'm going to show you the best way to buy a gun. Over the last few months I've been talking to customers. I've also been talking to a gun shop or shooting ground owner, which is Austin Shooting Grounds, and we've been talking about customers and how they've changed the trend and how they bought guns over the last year, couple of years. And going back 10, 20 years ago, people walked into a gun shop to buy a gun. Now, people don't necessarily walk into a gun shop. Gun shops are not the best place to buy a gun. If you go to a shooting school, like Austin Shooting Grounds, Oxford Gun Company, you can go to that shooting school, you can book yourself a couple of hours with a professional instructor, and you can go through 6 or 7, 8 guns. The first questions you get asked is what you're going to do. So are you going to go clay shooting? Are you going to be a hobby clay shooter? Are you going to be a serious competitive clay shooter? Are you going to be a game shooter? What sort of budget you're going to have? Have you got £500 to spend on a gun? Have you got £8,000 to spend on a gun? And most decent shooting schools will have a good stock of demo guns all the way through the ranges. And you can go there, you spend a couple of hours on the shooting grounds with that instructor, or that instructor slash gunroom assistant, gunroom expert, and you look at all the different guns within your price bracket, and also all the different guns that will do the job that you're asking that gun to do. I had a customer this week, exactly the same thing, drove about 3 hours to come and look at the full range of guns and to pick themselves out. This was actually a lady, and to pick her out a gun that fitted her off the shelf within her budget. And I wanted to show you, the viewer, and I wanted to make a film of how I did that actual process, because I found it really interesting. And when I was talking to Dan at Austin, he has exactly the same thing at Austin Shooting Grounds. The customers have changed their whole mindset of buying a gun. It's a bit like buying a car. You wouldn't necessarily go into a car showroom and just buy the first thing you see. Again, this is where I say, if you look at a shooting grounds, don't necessarily buy a gun from a gun shop without a shooting grounds. Go to a shooting school that's got a gun room, the whole facility, give them a ring or give them an email and book in a couple of hours and look at the whole guns. So I have now got 7 or 8 different guns. So I've done the process in the gun room first with the client, and I have got 7 or 8 different guns that they like within their price bracket. And you've got to bear in mind, each gun, different lengths, stock lengths, different comb heights, different barrel length. We've looked at that gun and we've come down to 3 or 4 that will be the choices that they like off the shelf. And then what we do is we go out onto the clay range and we look at 4 or 5 different targets. So on this particular stand, I've got the first thing that I will generally start people off on is a nice little incomer, just to make sure that they are mounting that gun correctly, the head is on that gun correctly, and the gun hits your cheek and hits your shoulder correctly. Then I will show them a left to right crosser, a right to left crosser, and maybe a rabbit as well. So they can look and they can shoot that gun and they can shoot the basic targets. The other thing I will also shoot with them is a simple little going away bird as well. So they've shot 4 or 5 different targets with that specific gun, and then they can have a look and see if they fit you. The reason why I start on an incomer is if you look and you can make sure the gun fits you, because then you can see, make sure that they are going to smoke it or make sure they're going to chip it. And some guns, they're going to look at and they're going to like the feeling of them when they're in the shop or in the gun room, but actually when they come out, they need somebody just to make sure that gun fits you, just to make sure that you can hit that clay correctly. So I'm now going to show you, the guns that I picked up. I've just picked up some second-hand guns, some new guns, some cheap guns, some expensive guns. And we're going to go through the guns and we're going to tell you the difference, and then I'm going to shoot the targets that I would shoot when you're actually looking with that customer that's going to buy that gun. So I've got an old Maruku. This is the equivalent of one of the MK60s. Again, flat in the comb, no recoil pad, reasonably inexpensive, £500–600. sporting rib, 30-inch barrels. I've got a Browning 525, again sporting rib, new recoil pad because this is like a new gun, height in the comb, and again the most important thing when you're looking at it is to make sure that your client is there. So the gun touches your cheek there. And again, depending on how big that customer is, whether you're a really tall person, whether you're a short person, that is going to fit, the comb height is going to fit each individual person. So when that gun goes there, that's what you want to be seeing. Not the head like that, the head parallel there. So that's the 525. Again, I've got a Yieldits SPZ Sporter. Again, a little bit height in the comb, 600, 700, 800 pounds. Recoil pad, sporting rib. I've got a Blaser F16, which again is going to cost you £3.5 to £4 grand. But again, a Blaser, a little bit lighter Blasers are. Recoil pad. The comb is not quite as high as a Browning, not as low as something like a Maruku MK60, but it's a little bit higher than that, so a good compromise. Again, the other one that we haven't got in this is the Browning 725, which again is a very similar stock dimension to the Blaser. I've then got a Beretta. Again, this is a slightly older Beretta. Beretta, flatter in the comb, no recoil pad, sporting rib. That's the Beretta. I've got the MK38 Maruku, which again is quite heavy. So if you've got a customer that is quite big, quite strong, that wants to shoot serious clay shooting, might do him a good because it's quite a heavy gun. Sporting rib, very high in the comb, recoil pad. And then I've got an ATA. Again, probably the cheapest gun here, £600 new. A starter gun, a budget gun, but again, it all depends on what you want to do with that gun. And then what I would do is I would come out and I'd have a look, and again, I would look at the incomer, try to show the customer a nice incomer. And that's the first thing you really want to start. And I would make sure that I know now, I'd ask the customer, is he left or right-handed? So I would make sure the gun is set up correctly, and let him shoot each individual gun. Now we've found out that all the guns fit him, I'd let him shoot each individual gun on the incomer and just see how he shoots that actual gun. If you look, I'm going to go down each gun and you'll see some guns I will shoot the incomer, I will smoke it, some guns I will chip it. Again, that all depends on the stock dimensions and the length of stock, the weight of the gun. Different person will handle the guns in a slightly different way. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to look at each individual gun. I'm just going to shoot a couple on the incomers. So for each gun, again, I explain to that specific customer, I explain about kill points, hold points, pickup points. So they're all similar the same because each customer will shoot a target in a slightly different way, but I will explain the easiest place to shoot that target, just so each gun you shoot the same clay in the same place so you can see the difference between the shot. So I'm going to use my Fiocchi TT2s. So this is now the Maruku, the cheaper Maruku, which has got the slightly lower comb, no recoil pad. Let's see how I shoot that one. Pull. Pull. So this is now the Browning 525, which if you're looking for a good all-round gun, and again I'm going to be completely honest, if you look at most of the gun clubs and the shooting schools, they will use these as their school guns and demo guns. Even the little gun club will use 325, 425, 525s because of the height in the comb, and it fits the general person. Pull. Now I've got the Yieldits SPZ Sporter. Pull. 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 Now I've got the Blaser F16. Pull. Pull. Now I've got the little Beretta Onyx, little second-hand, inexpensive Beretta. pull. Now I've got the big heavy clay gun, the MK38. Pull. Pull. Now I've got the ATA Sporter, which is potentially the cheapest gun there. It's still a good gun, but again, it all depends on the price that you want to spend on that gun. Pull. Pull. So by now I've gone through all the guns, and I've got my customer standing correctly, the head correctly on that gun, head there, not rolled on the head. And by now we've shot all the guns on the basic incomer, and he or she would have probably knocked out a couple of those guns that was within their price bracket for a not feeling comfortable when it's in the shoulder, or not handling right, or something like that. So by this time you probably knocked it down to a couple, or probably 3 out of the 7. And then what you would do from there on, you would go and you'd look at a couple of the crossers. So you'd put 2 in, and you'd look at a couple of crossers. I'm not going to go through every single gun, but this is exactly how you would try and fit a gun to somebody. A lot of people will go on a pattern plate. Now, I don't personally believe, unless you are very, very serious and you're serious at going into top-end sporting or top-end Olympic disciplines, I don't believe a pattern plate actually works for this type of gun, for sort of your first, second, third, fourth gun. Unless you're coming to me and you're saying, I want to go to the Olympic Games, then you need to know exactly with that pattern. But I felt that on all those incomers that I shot, I felt that that gun is shooting exactly where I'm looking, because you're with that instructor or that gun expert that knows how to fit a gun to you. And this is exactly where it really frustrates me when people advertise gun fitting and they don't advertise gun fitting with a lesson. And with respect, 90% of gun fit is within a lesson. So anyone that says at game fairs, at shows, come and do this free gun fit, it's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. You cannot get a true gun fit at a show. You've got to go with an expert, and you've got to go and have a lesson and look at the basic targets. So this is why, again, if anyone disagrees with me, I'd love to hear in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But this is my thoughts of buying a gun from a shooting school, not from a gun shop, is it gives you that variation, and you know that you've got that gun that will be the best gun for you until you decide to move on up. So I'm going to pick something like, I'm going to pick the MK38. I'm now going to shoot left to right crosser, on report, right to left crosser. So I'm going to pick my hold points, I'm going to pick my kill points, I'm going to pick where I pick the gun up first. So I mount my gun, and I mount my gun where I'm going to pull that trigger. I come back and I'm going to shoot this particular gun, down. Pull. Go on. Pull. I had 3 pairs of the MK38, which are absolutely fantastic. It handled well, I moved it well, it was 30-inch, got external chokes, got everything I want. But if I haven't got nearly £2,000 to spend on this and I wanted a new gun, I'm not going to be able to get this. So I'm going to look now, I'm going to think what that felt like, and I'm going to try a different gun for under £1,000, because that's my budget. So I'm going to look at something like the SPZ, which I would say is probably near as damn it like an MK38, but half the price. So this is exactly what that expert will be able to find you a gun for your budget. And this is what I hate, somebody coming in and pushing up that budget. If you've got £4,000 or £2,000 to spend, then fine, spend that. But this is how I would whittle it down to something that you can afford and that will do the job that you want it to do. If I wanted to shoot something, a little game gun, and I was, and I'm a young lady that's not got a lot of strength, then I would look at something like the little Beretta. A little bit low in the comb, so I'd make sure that that fits you, your eye is over that rib, but it's a little bit lighter. So again, not necessarily for my purpose. I don't particularly like this because I find I throw it all over the place. But if I was a young lad or a young lady that wanted something that didn't have a lot of strength, something like this. And that is the way you generally would fit a gun to somebody. And this is exactly what I did with this specific customer a couple of days ago. This specific customer fell in love with the Blazer, but she didn't have £3,500 to spend, or didn't want to spend £3,500 on a gun. So she actually went out with a Yield It Pro because it fitted her. She shot well with it, she shot various different targets with it, and it was under £2,000 that was within her budget. So, and again, this is exactly where you need to be thinking what you're going to do with that gun, how much is that budget, and this is what you need to be thinking when you're thinking about buying your first or second or third or fourth gun, or even when you've been shooting for 10 years and you want to think, I want to take up competitive sporting, or I want to take up Olympic trap or Olympic ski or something like that. Find your local shooting school that has got an expert in that field, and they will go and help you, and they will try 2 or 3 different guns, and they will look at what fits you and what handles correctly. If anyone thinks or agrees with what I've said in this, please comment below. I'd love to hear how you have bought your first gun, or your second gun, or your third gun. Please comment below. Please let me know your thoughts about trying a gun before you're buying it. I hope you've enjoyed this programme. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Please join the membership for as little as $2.99 a month. And don't forget, it really helps us, hit that subscribe button, and please hit that bell icon. It really gives us a bit more credit to give you content like this. I hope you've enjoyed this programme. Thank you for watching.